The night my sister asked me to design her wedding, I realized love can be a ledger. Every promise eventually shows up as a line item. I'm Julia Emerson, 29, an event planner in Nashville who can turn chaos into dinner for 200 with a smile and a floor plan. For 3 years, while Lydia chased graduate programs and sabbaticals, I came home after midnight walkthroughs to change Dad's sheets, count his pills, and Google what shortness of breath looks like when the person is trying not to scare you. By May, the house smelled like peonies and antiseptic, wedding flowers mixing with leftover oxygen tank metal. Lydia swept in from the airport, bronze and brilliant, flashing a diamond that could signal planes. Jules, I want classic Southern with a modern ceiling install, lanterns, a string quartet, oysters on ice. The whole thing, she said, already scrolling through inspo like grief was an optional add-on. I nodded, because that is what I do. I make things beautiful even when they're breaking. Vendors loved her. She loved being loved. Dad, in his recliner, squeezed my hand and whispered, "Don't overwork, bug." I lied and said I wouldn't. Budgets are my mother tongue. I built a spreadsheet. Venue, catering, rentals, lighting, contingency. Lydia insisted on the Garrison, the glass-walled hall on the river that books out a year in advance. I called in favors. We landed a Friday. 50% deposit due within 72 hours. $118,000 for the full package, plus the indoor garden build she had to have for the photos. That night, the payment confirmation hit my inbox before I'd sent the invoice to Lydia. I frowned. The payer wasn't Lydia Carter. It wasn't her fiancé, Ethan Hale. The line in the remittance field blinked like a hazard light. Emerson Care Fund. Care Fund! I stared until the words doubled. Emerson Care Fund was the account Dad's attorney had created when the cardiologist warned us the slope was getting steeper. We used it for home aids when my shifts ran long, for copays that stacked like bricks, for the chairlift I found on discount and installed with a YouTube video and a prayer. It was supposed to be a wall around his last years. Now it was oysters on ice. I dialed Lydia. She answered on the second ring, laughter still in her voice from whatever rooftop she was on. "Hey, Maestro, tell me the florals are locked." "You paid the Garrison," I said, "with Dad's care account." A beat, then breezy. "Technically, it's a family fund." "I'm family." "It's for medical expenses." "It was," she said, voice softening into something practiced. "Now it's for family legacy moments. Dad always said he wanted to see us happy." She exhaled like she'd said something generous. "He can't see much anymore, so we carry it for him." I looked at Dad through the doorway, dozing, his chest lifting like a tired wave. "Does Ethan know?" "Ethan knows I handle things," she said. "Julia, don't be dramatic. You know I'll replenish it once the signing bonus clears. This is just cash flow." "Cash flow," she said it like a ribbon. "You tie back later." I hung up before the word I wanted, theft, spilled out and made something unfixable. At 2 a.m., when the house quieted to that hospital hush, I opened the file box under Dad's desk. The Emerson Care Fund statements were there. The paper still crisp from the last quarterly mailing. I traced the deposits, the withdrawals, regular, responsible, boring. And then 3 days ago, $118,000 out. The Garrison Events, Nashville, TN. No memo, no authorization from me. The trustee signature scrawled at the bottom looked smooth, confident, nothing like Dad's letters in the last year when each J crawled uphill. My stomach went cold. I flipped to the back of the folder. Tucked behind the statements was a flash drive labeled in Dad's blocky caps. "Will plus notes." He'd told me once, half joking, that lawyers make clean copies out of messy truths. I slipped the drive into my laptop, hands shaking, and watched a Finder window open to a folder of scans and a single video file timestamped 2 months earlier. I didn't press play, not yet. Instead, I reached for the yellow legal pad where I map every wedding, drew a line down the center, and wrote 2 headers I could live with. What's paid and what's right. By morning, I had a new task list. It wasn't lighting plots or rental counts. It was phone calls, bank, attorney, Pastor Cole, who'd known Dad since Little League. Because I've learned 2 things in the business of staging happiness. Deposits speak, and so does silence. If Lydia was turning a care fund into a champagne fountain, I needed to know who handed her the ladle. The day the first delivery of white roses arrived, I signed for them with a hand that didn't tremble. Behind me, Dad slept. In front of me, two worlds stood side by side, the one I could make beautiful and the one I had to make honest. 3 nights later, the house was full of laughter that didn't sound like mourning. Lydia had turned the living room into a bridal staging area. Champagne flutes, silk robes, a neon sign that read Mrs. Hale to be. Dad's recliner had been pushed into the corner, half hidden behind a clothing rack draped with ivory dresses. I stood in the doorway, still wearing my hospital scrubs. "You moved his chair?" I said quietly. Lydia twirled, the robe slipping off one shoulder. "Jules, don't start. We needed space for the stylist. Dad doesn't mind." "Dad hasn't spoken in 3 days." Her smile thinned. "Exactly. Don't make this a thing. He'd want the house full of joy." Joy. The word tasted bitter. I crossed to the desk where she left her laptop open. The screen glowed with her inbox, contracts, invoices, and something labeled Estate Addendum, emersonrevision.pdf. My pulse jumped. "Since when do you have estate documents?" Lydia snapped the laptop shut. "Excuse me?" I saw the file name. Her tone turned glassy. Dad wanted to simplify things. He met with Mr. Lawson a few weeks before the stroke. "That's funny," I said, "because Lawson called me after that stroke and said Dad wasn't competent to sign anything." For a moment, something sharp flickered in her eyes, then gone. "Julia, you're exhausted. You're projecting." "Show me the document." "Absolutely not. You wouldn't understand the legal language anyway." There it was, the patronizing tilt in her voice that could slice through bone. "Try me." Lydia sighed dramatically, then reached for her tablet. "Fine, if it shuts you up." She pulled up a PDF, zoomed in on a signature at the bottom. Dad's, written with flawless, confident lines. I stared at it, blood roaring in my ears. That's not his handwriting. He couldn't hold a pen straight by February. Mark appeared in the hallway, adjusting his tie. "What's going on here?" Lydia didn't look away from me. "My sister's having another meltdown." I took a step closer. "You forged it." Her jaw tightened. "Careful, Julia." I saw the statements. You used the care fund to pay for your wedding, and now you're rewriting the will. That's not careful. That's criminal. Mark exhaled sharply, the smell of whiskey on his breath. "You don't know what you're talking about. Your dad told us he didn't want you burdened. You've done enough." "Burdened?" I laughed, short and harsh. "I kept him alive. That's not a burden. That's love." Lydia's voice softened, too soft. "You think love replaces stability? You've never owned anything. You float from job to job. Dad just wanted to make sure the house stayed with someone who could handle responsibility." "Responsibility?" I snapped. "You mean someone who could sign checks with his name?" Mark's face reddened. "Watch your tone." I turned to him. "Tell me, did you sign it for her or just stand there while she did it?" The air in the room tightened, everyone frozen around the accusation. Lydia's eyes burned. "You need to leave." "I live here." "Not anymore." Mark pulled out his phone, murmured something about calling the lawyer, and within an hour, I was standing in the driveway with a box of my things. Dad's old flannel, my planner, a stack of unopened sympathy cards. The porch light flicked off behind me. That night, I parked by the river, the city lights bleeding across the windshield. I wanted to scream, but instead I sat still and listened to the faint hum of a song Lydia used to play when we were kids. Something about home being where love stays. I wondered when she'd stop believing it, because I hadn't. The next morning, I got a message from the family group chat. Aunt Jo. "Julia, we're hearing you accused Lydia of forging the will? That's hurtful. She's grieving too." "Cousin Ben, you've always been the dramatic one. Maybe step back." And then Lydia's own message, the final twist of the knife. "Don't make me the villain, Jules. Dad made his choices. You just weren't one of them." I stared at the screen until the words blurred, then turned off my phone. The betrayal wasn't loud or cinematic. It was quiet, bureaucratic, and signed in ink. But I wasn't done, not by a long shot. I moved into a friend's spare room, above a coffee shop on 8th Avenue. It smelled like espresso and burnt toast, and at night the air conditioner groaned like a tired confession. I told myself it was temporary, a week, maybe 2, just until I figured out what to do next. Every time my phone buzzed, I flinched. I wanted it to be Dad's lawyer calling back saying it was all a misunderstanding. It never was. Instead, it was the family group chat lighting up again. Lydia, please stop spreading lies. Dad trusted me to handle things. This drama is hurting everyone. Aunt Jo, Julia, honey, Lydia told us you're threatening legal action. That's not what your father would want. Cousin Ben, it's a house, not a life sentence. Let it go. They talked about me like I died too. At the hospital, my coworkers whispered when they thought I couldn't hear. One nurse said, "She's the sister suing over a will, right?" Another replied, "I heard she got cut out for a reason." I started volunteering for night shifts again. Less talking, more silence. By Thursday, Lydia's version of the story was everywhere. A Facebook post with a filtered photo of her and Dad. He taught me that love means responsibility. I hope to honor that in every decision I make. The comments were full of hearts and praise. Such a good daughter. He must be proud. I wanted to type the truth under every comment but didn't. Truths posted online get buried under sympathy is faster than lies. That weekend, I drove past the house just once. Lydia's wedding planner, someone I used to mentor, was out front directing deliveries. White tents, imported roses, sound trucks. My father's care fund was blooming in 14-carat arrangements. Harriet, our old neighbor, was watering her porch plants. She waved me over, squinting at the chaos across the street. "Your sister sure knows how to throw money at grief," she muttered. Then her eyes softened. "You okay, Julia?" I swallowed. Trying to be. She hesitated, then said quietly, "You know, I was there when your dad signed his last set of insurance forms. His hand shook so bad I had to steady the paper. If anyone shows you a signature that looks smooth, it's not his." Something in me steadied. "Would you be willing to say that later, if needed?" Harriet didn't blink. "I've lived next door 30 years. I'll tell the truth if asked." That night, back in my small rented room, I pulled out Dad's flash drive again. The file labeled Will plus Notes still sat unopened. My hands shook as I clicked play. Dad sat in his recliner, thinner than I remembered, voice raspy but clear. "If this message is being seen," he said, "then the doctors were right. I'm probably gone. I've left copies of my wishes with Lawson. The lake house is for Julia. She stayed. She kept me alive when the nights got long." I pressed pause, tears blurring the screen. The file name had been right all along. Messy Truth. I replayed the part where he said she stayed until the words felt carved into my ribs. The next morning, I sent Lawson, Dad's lawyer, a short email. "I have reason to believe my sister submitted a forged revision of the will. I have a recording and a witness. When can we meet?" His reply came an hour later. "Monday morning. Bring everything." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't just surviving. I was moving. Monday morning, I arrived at Lawson and Finch Legal 10 minutes early, clutching Dad's flash drive and a folder thick with photocopies. The receptionist looked up, startled, when I said my name. "Mr. Lawson's been expecting you," she said, and led me down a hallway lined with framed degrees. Lawson was older than I remembered, his hair thinner, his tone still sharp. He motioned to the chair across from his desk. "Julia, I wondered when you'd come in." "I needed proof before I said anything," I replied. He nodded. "And now you have it?" I slid the flash drive across the desk. Dad recorded a message. He said the lake house was mine. He called it his one steady thing. Lydia's new will contradicts that. And it's signed with handwriting he couldn't possibly produce. Lawson inserted the drive, watched the video in silence. When Dad's voice ended, "She stayed. She kept me alive when the nights got long." Lawson exhaled, rubbing his temples. That's his voice, no doubt. And this video was time-stamped 6 weeks before the revision Lydia brought me. He never mentioned any changes. "So she forged it." Lawson's jaw tightened. "I can't say that yet, but I can request handwriting verification. And Julia?" He leaned forward. "Do you have any outside witnesses?" "Two," I said. "Our neighbor Harriet, who watched him sign insurance papers, and Pastor Cole, who confirms he never counseled Dad about an updated will." "Good," Lawson said. "Then we proceed carefully. No confrontation yet. Let the paper speak first." Except Lydia never waited quietly. That afternoon, my phone exploded with messages. Screenshots of Lydia's latest post were everywhere. A smiling photo of her and Ethan captioned, 3 days until forever. Grateful for Dad's faith in me to carry the family legacy. Some people confuse care with control. Thousands of likes, family members commenting hearts. One mutual friend texted, "You're trending for the wrong reasons, Jules." I didn't reply. Instead, I uploaded a short private clip to a shared drive labeled "For Lawson Only." Dad's message, Harriet's written statement, and copies of the old care fund transactions. I included every timestamp, every date. If Lydia wanted to play in public, I'd build my case in daylight. By Wednesday, the whispers reached church. Pastor Cole called. "Julia, I need to warn you. Lydia told the congregation you're unstable. That grief made you imagine things." I swallowed hard. "And you?" "I told her God doesn't notarize lies," he said quietly. That night, Harriet knocked on my door. She wore her church hat even though it was late. "They're talking about you, child," she said, "so maybe it's time they saw some truth." She handed me an envelope. Inside was a notarized affidavit, her statement describing the tremor in Dad's hands the day he signed his last legitimate document. "Thank you," I whispered. "Don't thank me yet," she said. "Save it for when you win." The next morning, Lawson called. "Julia, the handwriting analyst confirmed your suspicion. The signature on the revised will was traced digitally, same base signature from an old 2019 form. Copied and reprinted." My breath caught. "So it's proven?" "Nearly. One more thing. We need bank verification that matches Lydia's payments from the care fund. Can you get access to her wedding invoices?" A slow, dangerous smile spread across my face. "I organized the whole wedding. Every invoice passes through me." Public opinion was already starting to turn. Harriet's statement leaked through a local journalist she trusted. The article headline hit Wednesday night: "Family feud over forged will. Nashville nurse versus Sisters Wedding Fund." Lydia texted me within minutes. "You're going to regret this. Take it down or I swear you'll never see that house again." I typed back one line and hit send. "See you at the wedding, Lydia. I'm bringing the truth as my +1. By Friday morning." The wedding countdown clock on Lydia's Instagram read 24 hours to forever. Her life looked perfect online. Soft light, champagne smiles, and a caption about carrying Dad's legacy. I'd stopped checking her posts, but people kept sending them to me anyway, like they couldn't resist watching the train wreck from both ends. That day, I was sitting at my laptop reviewing the final invoices when one email caught my eye. Subject: Payment confirmation. The Garrison Event Hall, transaction reference #7461 B. Emerson Fund. It wasn't addressed to Lydia. It was sent to me, the default contact for vendor billing, and attached was a PDF I hadn't seen before, an amended wire confirmation, routed through a secondary account, not Emerson Care Fund. This one read, E. Hale Trust Holding, Ethan's name. I clicked through the pages. Heartbeat, thrumming. The transfer wasn't a refund. It was a full reroute. The care fund had been emptied, wired into Ethan Hale's private holding account just 1 week before Dad passed, and the signature of authorization came from Lydia Carter, trustee. Dad wasn't even mentioned. It hit me like a slow, heavy breath of realization. Lydia hadn't just forged a will. She'd laundered Dad's money through her fiancé. I printed every page, lined them up on my kitchen counter like crime scene photos. Then I called Lawson. "It's worse," I said. He listened in silence as I explained. Finally, he spoke. "Julia, that's financial fraud. If you show this at the wedding, do it clean. No screaming, no drama. Just evidence. Let the facts ruin them." I promised him I would. That night, as the rehearsal dinner unfolded at the Garrison, I sat in my car outside, engine off, watching silhouettes through the glass. Lydia in white, radiant, confident. Ethan beside her, his hand possessive on her back. I zoomed in with my phone and snapped a single photo. Not of them, but of the wine menu propped beside their table. Vintage rose, $850 a bottle. Bought with blood and morphine and care fund money. My phone buzzed. A message from Mom's old number, now registered to Lydia's device. "Julia, please don't ruin my day. You've already taken enough from this family. For a moment, my vision blurred. Then I realized the tone wasn't pleading, it was warning. Lydia was never afraid of my anger, only my proof. I turned off the phone and opened the glove compartment. Inside was a small flash drive labeled Dad's Will, Backup. Next to it, a USB of my own, the folder containing the forged wire transfers, the bank trail, and Harriet's affidavit. Tomorrow, they'd both play side by side on the garrison's LED screen, the one Lydia rented for her vow video montage. She'd given me the access code weeks ago, trusting me as her planner. Now that trust was the fuse. When I got home, the power flickered, a summer storm rolling in. I sat by the window, wind curling through the curtains, thunder shaking the street. It felt like the city itself was holding its breath. I opened my laptop one last time, checked every file, and renamed the main folder. For Dad, a final draft. Just before midnight, a text came from an unknown number. You don't understand what you're about to do. Walk away. No name, but I didn't need one. It was Ethan. And if he was nervous, that meant Lydia had finally told him what she'd done. I typed one line back, "See you both under the lights." Then I closed the laptop, the storm cracking open outside, and whispered to the empty room, "Tomorrow isn't your wedding, Lydia. It's Judgment Day." If this were your family, what would you do? Drop your story and subscribe Revenge Stories Women 25. Saturday, 4:17 p.m. The garrison glowed like a cathedral made of glass. Rows of white chairs faced the river, ribbons fluttering in the breeze, everything perfect. Expensive, effortless, fake. I stood near the AV booth in a black jumpsuit, looking like another staff member. Lydia didn't notice me when she swept past in her lace gown, a cloud of perfume and entitlement. "Check the lighting cues," she told the coordinator. "When I walk down the aisle, I want the LED screen to fade into Dad's photo." It would, just not the one she expected. Guests murmured as violins swelled. Ethan waited at the altar, every inch the golden groom. My stomach clenched as the vows began. The sunlight through the glass wall haloed them both, a portrait of perfection painted in stolen money. When the officiant announced, "Now, before the vows, a tribute to the father of the bride," I nodded to the AV tech who gave me a thumbs up. The screen lit up, Lydia smiling at Dad in old home videos, soft piano music underlining the illusion. She had edited out the hospital tubes, the weakness, the truth. At the 3-minute mark, the video faded to black. Then a new one started automatically. Dad's face filled the screen, thin but clear-eyed, sitting in his recliner. The room fell silent. "If you're seeing this," he said, "I'm probably gone. My girls mean everything to me, but I need the record straight. The lake house belongs to Julia. She stayed. She kept me alive when the nights got long." Gasps rippled through the hall. The officiant turned toward the booth. Lydia's bouquet slipped from her hand. "Turn that off," she hissed. But the tech, confused, glanced at me, and I shook my head slowly. The video continued. "If anyone changes this will," Dad said, "Lawson has the real one on file. Don't let greed steal what Care built." The screen froze on his face. Then another clip rolled, a PDF projection of the forged will, the fake signature glowing under magnification. Beside it appeared the bank transactions, $118,000 transferred from Emerson Care Fund to E. Hale Trust Holding. Highlighted, stamped, dated. Whispers turned to shouts. Ethan stared at the screen, his color draining. "What is this?" he muttered. I stepped forward. "It's your joint account, Ethan. You helped move my father's care money into your wedding fund." Cameras clicked. Guests raised phones. Lydia spun toward me, wild-eyed. You hacked this?" "No," I said calmly. "You handed me the access code when you hired me to plan this day." Ethan's voice shook. "Lydia, tell me this isn't real." She tried to grab his arm, but he pulled away. "You said your dad approved everything. You said the money was yours." "It was supposed to be temporary," she cried. "He wanted me to steal from his own care account," I cut in. "You didn't even wait until he was gone." The officiant backed away. Guests whispered. One older aunt whispered, "That poor girl." But she wasn't looking at Lydia. She was looking at me. Ethan's mother stood up from the front row. My son's name is on that account? She asked, voice trembling. I nodded. He might not have known at first, but he definitely knew by the time the wedding deposit cleared. Security started moving toward the front as the murmurs grew into chaos. Lydia reached for the mic, desperate. Everyone, please. Julia is lying. She's always been jealous. Before she could finish, Lawson himself stepped forward from the back row. He had come quietly, at my invitation. His voice cut through the noise. I can confirm that the version of the will presented by Miss Lydia Carter was forged. The original, verified by witnesses, leaves the lake house to Miss Julia Emerson. Silence. Even the music stopped. Lydia stared at him like she was falling through glass. You weren't supposed to. I was supposed to protect your father's last wishes, Lawson said, and now I am. Ethan dropped his boutonniere, walked past her without a word, and out the doors into the blinding sun. Lydia tried to follow, tripping on her gown. Cameras flashed, guests whispered, and I, finally, just stood there, still, unshaken. I didn't shout, I didn't gloat. I just turned to the microphone and said softly, Dad always said legacy isn't about money. It's about what you do when no one's watching. Then I handed the mic back to the stunned officiant, gathered my bag, and walked out as Lydia's wedding fell apart behind me. Outside, the river wind hit my face like relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't the helper, the caretaker, or the forgotten daughter. I was the truth teller. And truth, I realized, makes its own kind of music. Louder than violins, sharper than applause. By Monday morning, the wedding video had already made the rounds. Someone in the audience had uploaded the clip. Dad's face, my voice, Lydia's meltdown. Headlines sprouted like weeds. Bride's inheritance scandal erupts mid-ceremony. Sister exposes forged will during vows. Every time I opened my phone, my own eyes stared back at me from a frozen thumbnail. Calm, unshaken, a woman who'd stopped apologizing. Lydia called once. I didn't answer. The second time, she showed up at my door, sunglasses hiding swollen eyes, clutching a manila envelope like a lifeline. Julia, she began, her voice thin. They froze our accounts. Ethan's gone. The firm suspended me pending investigation. I said nothing. She looked smaller now. No spotlight, no designer dress, just a sister cornered by her own choices. I'll sign over the house, she said quickly. Everything. Just, please don't press charges. I can't survive prison, Jules. Prison? I said quietly. You're thinking about yourself. You should have thought about Dad. Tears welled up behind her glasses. You don't understand. He always compared us. You were the good one. I just wanted to win something. Then you should have picked honesty, I said. She pressed the envelope into my hands. Here, proof that the accounts are in my name. Maybe if you show cooperation, they'll go easy. I didn't take it. The lawyer already has everything he needs. This isn't about mercy or vengeance, Lydia. It's about consequence. Her voice cracked. So that's it? You hate me forever? I shook my head. No, I don't hate you. Hate would mean I still carry you inside me. I'm done carrying anything that heavy. She stood there for a long moment, trembling, then whispered, You sound just like him? That's the best thing anyone's ever said to me. When she finally turned to leave, I watched from the doorway as her figure shrank down the driveway, barefoot, mascara streaked, stripped of the power she'd built on lies. For a moment, I felt sorry for her. Then I remembered Dad's voice. Don't let greed steal what care built. Forgiveness wasn't an act of sainthood. It was a boundary. And I'd finally drawn mine. I went back inside, closed the door gently, and exhaled. The house was quiet again, the kind of silence that didn't hurt anymore. For the first time, I didn't feel like the one left behind. I felt like the one who stayed true. A month later, the lake house smelled like lemon oil and peace. The curtains finally hung straight, the floors polished to the shine Dad always liked. I'd spent weeks sorting through boxes, old tools, his record collection, the chessboard with one missing pawn. Every piece of it felt like rebuilding a heartbeat. The court hearing had come and gone quietly. The judge ruled in my favor. Dad's original will restored, Lydia's forged version nullified. The bank flagged her transactions for investigation, and she'd taken a plea deal that kept her out of prison but barred her from working in finance again. When I got the notice in the mail, I didn't smile. I just felt still. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it exhales. On the first weekend of June, I hosted something small. Coffee and pie for the neighbors who'd stood by me when family didn't. Harriet brought hydrangeas, said they'd look perfect by the porch. "The world has a way of catching up with truth," she said, squeezing my hand. After everyone left, I walked down to the dock. The lake mirrored the sunset, golden ripples stretching into dusk. For the first time in years, I wasn't checking bank statements or hospital charts. I was checking the sky. I set my camera on the railing, framed the house behind me, and took a photo. Nothing posed, nothing perfect. Just me, in Dad's flannel shirt, barefoot, smiling without trying. Then I took out his old notebook, the one labeled "For the Girls." Inside, written in his shaky hand, was a single line. "Legacy isn't who gets what. It's who keeps the light on when everyone else goes home." I whispered, "The light's still on, Dad." That night, I started drafting something new, a business plan, but not for weddings. For Truth, a small event studio called Second Story that would specialize in memorial celebrations and charity galas for caregivers. People like me. People who stay. Each page I filled felt like reclaiming ground I'd lost one apology at a time. The fear that used to hum under my skin was gone. In its place was a calm certainty. I didn't need anyone's permission to begin again. Before bed, I scrolled through my phone and saw one last message from Lydia. Just 3 words. "I'm getting help." I stared at it for a while, then typed back, "Good." No anger, no bitterness. Just release. Outside, the lake shimmered under moonlight. I thought about all the versions of myself I'd been. The planner, the nurse, the daughter, the sister who begged to be believed. All of them had built the woman standing there now. I took one deep breath and said the words that had become my compass through every storm. "I choose me." And this time, it wasn't defiance. It was freedom. I choose me. Tell me what you do. Drop your story and subscribe Revenge Stories. Women 25.